And now that we are done with the main event and co-main event title fight breakdowns, let's jump into the rest of the card, and it starts in the featured bout of the evening. Top 15 bantamweights, the king of Rio de Janeiro, Jose Aldo, back once again to take on the king of Montreal, Aiemann Zahabi, currently number 15 in the rankings and on a tear right now, the best stretch of his career. Now, can he pick up the biggest win of his career? At 38 years of age and having 41 professional fights under his belt, Jose Aldo still continues to compete and have close fights with some of the best fighters in the world. However, he does enter UFC 315 having lost 2 of his last 3 bouts. But again, look at who those losses are against. His most recent fight was in October of last year at UFC 307. Where he had a very, very close fight with Mario Bautista, who I believe has now won 6, 7, 8 fights in a row. Prior to that, a victory over Jonathan Martinez, very convincingly, may I add. And before that, a loss to the current champion at 135 pounds, Merab Dvalishvili. And of course, between the Merab fight and the Martinez fight, there was about a year and a half retirement. But Jose Aldo has unretired, and now he is competing for the 3rd time since coming back. Can he get a victory? Can he right the ship? Or is this the last straw for the legend that is Jose Aldo, the longtime featherweight champion, the former WEC champion, 8 or 9 title defenses across both organizations, now turned bantamweight, at one point was a title challenger at 135 pounds, but Aiemann Zahabi may not have the name value that Jose Aldo does. Everybody knows the King of Rio, but after Saturday night at UFC 315, maybe Aiemann Zahabi is on everyone's radar. And this has got to be one of the craziest stats of the entire weekend, because although Zahabi is kind of viewed as, I guess you could say he's a veteran now, but he's also at the same time kind of sort of a prospect, being that he only has 14 professional fights and 8 of those in the UFC, but he's 37 years old. Somehow, someway, Aiemann Zahabi is just 1 year younger than Jose Aldo. Even though Jose Aldo made his professional mixed martial arts debut 8 years before Aiemann Zahabi did. 2004 for Jose Aldo, 2012 for Zahabi. And you may be thinking that that last name Zahabi sounds familiar. Well, you wouldn't be wrong, because his brother Firas Zahabi is one of the greatest minds of Canadian mixed martial arts that we have ever seen, was a longtime coach of Georges St. Pierre, and now here's his brother Aiemann making a run in the UFC, arguably in the deepest division in the UFC of bantamweight. Zahabi began a 5-fight win streak on February 20th of 2021, and he hasn't looked back since, and none of those victories more notable than his win over Pedro Munoz last November, where he really beat down the seasoned veteran. And now can he do that again against an even more battle-tested and seasoned veteran in Jose Aldo? Overall, in the 14 fights that Zahabi has competed in as a professional, he is 12-2, with 8 of his 12 victories coming by way of stoppage. But Jose Aldo Jr., one of the most durable fighters in UFC history. Can Zahabi get a finish? Can Zahabi just get a victory to solidify himself as a legitimate player and a legitimate threat in this bantamweight division? Because, as we said, 37 years old, time is not on his side. He doesn't have much longer of a window to make a climb in such a stacked division like bantamweight. This one will catapult him in to all of the elite discussions. And one last thing on this fight is the betting odds, because Jose Aldo, having lost 2 of his last 3 fights, being the seasoned 38-year-old veteran that he is quite a sizable favorite, nearing minus 200 on the sports books that I use, which means Zahabi, the surging fighter who has won 5 consecutive bouts, is about a plus 160 or even north of, depending on your book. And I'm just going to be honest, that's a bet that I'm willing to take. I hate betting against a legend like Aldo, but it just seems that Zahabi has all of the momentum right now. He has all of the skills to combat what Jose Aldo presents to him, and for that reason alone, at those type of odds, I had to take a stab at the Canadian in his home country, in his home city, in front of his home crowd. Next up, we're going to move into my most anticipated fight of the entire UFC 315 card, and that is the flyweight number 1 contender bout between the former champion Alexa Grasso and the number 5 ranked undefeated in the UFC future champion, just a matter of when, not if, Natalia Silva. Alexa Grasso is 31 years old, so really just now entering her prime, but already has so much high-level experience in her UFC career, dating back quite a ways now at this point, 2017, as a matter of fact. 2016, actually. November. I was close. And we quite literally saw her start her career first off down at strawweight, but then winning one, losing one, winning one, losing one. She was never really able to gain momentum down in the 115-pound weight class, but the second she moved up to 125 when the division began, that is when she entered in to her full physical capabilities. She tallied off 4 straight fights to start her flyweight career, including wins over Macy Barber, Joanne Wood, and Viviane Araújo. That win over Araújo is what earned her a shot at Valentina Shevchenko's throne at UFC 285 in March of 2023, and if you tuned in for the co-main event breakdown, you already know what happened on that night. Alexa Grasso shocked the world as a plus 650 underdog and submitted the dominant at that time Valentina Shevchenko to become the new champion and end Shevchenko's flyweight run of terror. They would rematch 6 months later in September of 2023 and fight to a draw due to a big knockdown and late push from Alexa Grasso in a fight that she was losing up until those big moments. And then the trilogy would come to an end for now because Valentina Shevchenko would get her title back by defeating Alexa Grasso at Noche UFC 306 in September of 2024, 1 year removed from their second bout, and she would do it in very convincing fashion. It was all Valentina Shevchenko from minute 1 to minute 25. On the stand-up and definitely in the grappling and wrestling with 8 takedowns and over 16 minutes of control time. And that was a shocking performance, not only from Valentina to kind of turn back the clock, but for Alexa Grasso, it just looked like she couldn't get going, she couldn't make proper adjustments in between rounds, and she just didn't have a good game plan, if I'm being quite honest with you. But she's going to need to bounce back in a big way here before she gets sent down the totem pole by someone that is lethal, that is dangerous, and as an elite of a prospect as you can have in this flyweight division right now, one of my favorite fighters going, Natalia Silva. The 28-year-old Natalia Silva is just now getting ready to enter her prime, yet she finds herself 1 win away from title contention and has not lost a fight since December 16th of 2017 on the Brazilian regional scene. And guess who that loss was to? Marina Rodriguez. And since that loss 8 years ago, she has won 12 consecutive fights and has gone 6-0 in the UFC since debuting in June of 2022. And her debut was against Jasmine Jasudavicius, who is now a number 9 ranked flyweight, competing this same card against Jessica Andrade. Yes, we're going to talk about that fight shortly. It's flyweight moving night at UFC 315. And while Silva has only finished 2 of her 6 wins in the UFC thus far, she has looked nothing short of phenomenal, of fantastic, of, dare I say, perfection. There has not been a single sliver of doubt in any of these 6 fights that we may have thought she was going to lose. At least for me. That is how damn good that she has been. And at this young age of 28, not even in her prime, but just now getting ready to enter the prime, this could be a scary, scary force to be reckoned with at 125 for years to come. And it's not as though during these 6 fights in the UFC, Silva isn't battle tested. As I said, she debuted against Jasmine, and you've seen how well that win has aged. She's beaten Andrea Lee, a longtime UFC veteran. She's beaten Viviane Araújo, a top 10 flyweight. She's beaten Jessica Andrade, a former title challenger at 125, a former champion at 115, and a former competitor at 135. Natalia Silva has a lot of great experience already under her belt that I think pairs very well with her skill set against someone like Alexa Grasso. Grasso, known for her hands, some of the best boxing in women's mixed martial arts in the UFC, but dare I say, she's not going to have the advantage on the feet in this fight. That is how good and fast and technical and precise Natalia Silva is. Not with necessarily the boxing in the hands like Alexa Grasso, but she gets it done with such a variety of weapons with her hands, with her feet, her knees, her Muay Thai. Everything is so sharp and crisp, and she's very defensively minded as well. She utilizes a great sidekick to keep her opponents at bay, and if she utilizes that here, I have a hard time seeing Alexa Grasso getting this into the boxing range that she's going to want to get this into. So Grasso's best path to victory here may just be to wrestle. But Natalia Silva has showed incredible takedown defense in her 6 UFC fights thus far, 91%, and it's not as though Alexa Grasso is some all-elite level wrestler, right? A 40% takedown accuracy for her. Yes, she doesn't go to that realm as much because of her crisp boxing, but here, I think she's going to have to, and if she can't close that distance to get the takedown, this could be all Natalia Silva. I really see a world where we could see a very clean 30-27 decision win for Natalia that catapults her right into getting the winner of the main event between Valentina Shevchenko and Manon Fiorot. I'd love to get your all's thoughts on this fight down in the comments below. Are you as high on Natalia Silva as me? Am I just simping for her skills? Am I overlooking her? Am I biting off more than I can chew? Is Alexa Grasso going to be too much too soon for Natalia Silva? Give me all your thoughts down below. And the main card opener was supposed to be the number 13 ranked Benoit St. Denis versus the number 15 ranked Joel Alvarez at lightweight, which would have more than likely been the fight of the night for this card. But unfortunately, Joel Alvarez had to pull out due to injury, so in steps former UFC 2-fight alum Kyle Prepolec, who is from Canada. He went 0-2 during his stretch from May of 2019 to September of 2019. Losses to Nordine Taleb and Austin Hubbard, but now he's coming in on a 3-fight win streak. Short notice, though, against a dangerous killer in Benoit St. Denis. There's a reason he's a minus 1,000 favorite. I'm not going to preview this fight, but in the recap, maybe Kyle pulls off an absolutely insane upset. Definitely worth mentioning the prelim headliner, though, as Canada's own Mike Malott is stepping in to take on Charles Radtke. Malott had a ton of hype behind him during his stint on the Contender Series back in 2021, as he was touted as being the next big thing for Canadian mixed martial arts, and he made good on that moniker for his first 3 UFC fights, 3-0 with 3 finishes. However, that momentum would be halted briefly by the veteran Neil Magny in January of last year, where not only would Neil Magny come back and win the fight, but he would finish Mike Malott after wilting him with his pressure late into that 3rd round. But for what it's worth, Malott did bounce back from his first UFC loss last November where he defeated Trevin Giles, so now he will look to make it 2 in a row and 5-1 in the UFC. Charles Radtke, Chuck Buffalo, no easy out, however, as he is 3-1 in the UFC, the former Cage Fury champion. He's 10-4 overall with 7 finishes, and his only loss in the UFC is to Carlos Prates, which is something that has aged quite well, and that came in June of last year, so he also bounced back from his first UFC loss, similar to Mike Malott, and he did that with a win over the veteran Matthew Simmelsberger in November of last year. This is a big one here for Mike Malott to get a victory in front of the Canadian crowd like he did in November of last year in the card that was also in Canada, and for Chuck Buffalo, Charles Radtke, he can come into enemy territory, make some noise, and he'll let the crowd hear it if he has a good enough performance. Don't doubt that. And back to the women's flyweight division one final time for this UFC 315 card, because we've got an incredibly good fight in the prelim portion of the show. The number 7 ranked Jessica Andrade, I already said, the former strawweight champion, the former flyweight title challenger, and the former 135-pound beast is back to take on the surging number 9 ranked Canada's own Jasmine Jasudavicius. Jessica Andrade entered the UFC July 27th of 2013, nearly 12 years ago, when she would have just been 21 years of age. Yes, after all these years, after 28 UFC fights, after being a champion, after competing in 3 weight classes, after being a title challenger, she's still 33 years old. That's the prime years for a lot of fighters. Jessica Andrade is a true fighter's fighter. Anyone, anywhere, anytime, any weight. She's one of what? Just 2 or 3 fighters total in UFC history to have knockouts in 3 separate divisions. I believe her, Conor McGregor, and Jared Cannonier off the top of my head are the only ones. And now she's back here on the heels of that loss to the aforementioned Natalia Silva, but before that had won 2 in a row over Mackenzie Dern and Marina Rodriguez as she continues to bounce back and forth between 125 and 115. But if she can find a home here and halt the momentum of Jasmine, maybe she decides to stick around 125 just a little bit longer, especially depending on who wins that championship fight at the top of the bill. And she's quite literally fought the who's who of the UFC across all 3 weight classes that she's competed in, from Natalia Silva, Marina Rodriguez, Mackenzie Dern, Tatiana Suarez, Yan Xiaonan, Erin Blanchfield, Amanda Lemos, Valentina Shevchenko, Caitlin Sermonara, the list goes on and on, Rose Namajunas, Muniz twice, Karolina Kowalkiewicz, Zhang Wei Li. I mean, there's no one that rivals a strength of schedule in women's MMA history than Jessica Andrade. Yes, she hasn't won all of them, but damn it, she's won most of them. This will be her 40th professional fight, her 29th fight in the UFC, and if she can halt the momentum of Jasmine, what a moment it would be, especially in enemy territory. And for Jasmine, this will be her 10th UFC fight, 17th overall, and it's crazy, she's 3 years older than Jessica Andrade at 36 years of age, but she's just now hitting her stride, greater than she has ever done before, having won her last 4 fights, not lost since September of 2023. Yes, she's fought 5 times since September of 2023, the most active female fighter on the roster currently. Her win streak began in January of 2024. She would go 3-0 last year, and she's already fought once this year, and it's only May. She got a victory over the former bantamweight title challenger Mayra Bueno Silva in the first ever women's fight in Saudi Arabia for the UFC, and she did it dominantly, may I add. She has looked absolutely incredible. She's polished in pretty much all aspects of her game, but she loves to go back to the wrestling and grappling to get the job done. Can she do that against someone that is built like a bull in Jessica Andrade? Will she be the stronger fighter here? That's the biggest question mark. If it stays on the feet, I get a little nervous for Jasmine because of the power that Jessica Andrade has and the durability. And, I mean, it's not like Jasmine has the heaviest of hands, having only won 2 fights by KO TKO out of her 13 pro wins in her career. But if Jasmine can find a way to close the distance on Jessica and get her down, and she is going to be a lot bigger in terms of size and reach, that is where it could pay dividends for Jasmine for the biggest win of her career. If she beats Jessica Andrade, gets into the number 7 spot come Tuesday morning, she's one more win away from a title shot. At 36 years of age at women's flyweight, that's impressive. So that is going to be it for the in-depth breakdowns for UFC 315. Don't get me wrong, there's a couple of other fun fights on this card. Modestas Bukauskas and Jan Cutelaba in the light heavyweight division. That's going to be a banger. I'm big on Modestas since coming back from his knee injury, so we'll see if he can get that victory, and that'll probably put him right near the top 15, if not in it. Not to mention another undefeated light heavyweight prospect in Navajo Sterling the fight before that. So there are definitely some very fun fights on this card. This card's been getting a lot of slack. I think it's just because not a lot of people enjoy Bilal Muhammad. But low-key, from start to finish, this is a very good card that Montreal, Quebec, Canada is getting, and I want to hear all of your thoughts on UFC 315 down in the comments below, alongside with your bets and your predictions. If you enjoyed this breakdown, please be sure to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new. We continue to chase the goal of 1,000 subscribers here in the year of 2025, so any and all support is greatly appreciated. You can expect weekly breakdowns like these, talking about the X's and O's, yes, but also, more importantly to me, the storylines and what is at stake heading into all of the biggest fights. In the aftermath of each event, I also recap the most meaningful results, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements. You can also join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as like the Facebook page Verbal Sparring MMA. And you can follow on your favorite podcast listening platform, where every Monday and Friday episodes are released on Spotify, Apple, and more. Have a great weekend, enjoy the fights, and I will see you all in the next video.